Le miroir.
Le miroir. Le miroir. Je suis la directeur à le miroir. Le miroir. Le miroir. Le miroir. Le miroir. Doesn't sound right.
Le miroir.
Le miroir. Right, got it. Hi, I'm Leila. I'm the director of Le Miroir. And today we're going to be doing a Q&A between myself and the lead actress who played Mathilde, Rachel Giddens. And basically she sent me some questions and I've sent her some, and I'm going to edit them together because I'm in a place with very bad internet which can't sustain Zoom. So the idea for the film actually came from, well, the story came from basically like one image, and I'm going to put it up on the screen now, and it's basically taken from the film called The Mirror. Weirdly, I didn't know this at the time, by Tarkovsky, and it was given to me as a prompt from my teacher at Sydney Film School, which is where I created the project. Yeah, so I'm just going to read out what I wrote in response to that prompt, and this was written within the first 10-15 minutes, and kind of what I find interesting is how a lot of the main points have stayed really, really similar. She was the most superstitious person I'd ever met. No open umbrellas, no black cats, no ladders which could be walked under. The broken mirror happened on a Sunday morning. She was out at church, thank God. There was an immeasurable expanse of time as the mirror fell towards the ground, in which I'm sure my life changed forever. I can still hear it. It didn't shatter, but only cracked. It had to go. Not only that, but it had to be replaced before she returned. The exact same mirror. She could never know. I picked it up and ran. Another main one was music, particularly. So the film A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, I particularly loved the soundtrack to that, directed by Anna Lily Poole. It features a few songs actually by the band Kiosk, but there's one in particular called, I'm going to say it's wrong, but it's like Charkeshi Pooch. Anyway, I got really into Iranian rock at the time, and I really loved the song because it was kind of very traditional carnival folk, but so it's kind of the style which is light-hearted on face value, but then there's like real loss and grief and sorrow at its core, and that kind of informed the entire tone for the film, really. Yeah, so I would say those two were, well, obviously the story came from that image, that's the biggest one. Then that music kind of informed the tone. Other influences in terms of, set design, we did look at Wes's work, first name terms. No, Wes Anderson. I see him kind of as a source of almost like perfection. I don't mean that in terms of the actual definition of the word, but I mean like everything he does is so precise and exact and perfect. And it's not something you would want to try to emulate exactly, but there were definitely inspiration there in terms of the camera movements and design. Jean-Pierre Jeunet, obviously, Amélie. I hadn't actually watched Amélie, I have to admit, before writing it, but when I'd written it, everyone said, like, you had to. So I did, and I'm sure, like, I love the magical realism that he brings to it, and I'm pretty sure that informed the direction, at least. I'm very inspired by buildings occasionally as well, and like I have a list on Airbnb that I keep. So the fairy tale cottage, I had that before I wrote the script as well, and I knew I really wanted to incorporate that. So I'm going to put up a character board that I made. So these characters, they all inspired Mathilde, and you can see there is a certain common physicality between them, but I was very conscious to not be bound and never be bound by physical appearance. I was very open about that. What I was not quite so open to, like, I really wanted Mathilde to have a French accent and an authentic French accent. This was difficult because there were not many either French actresses that I could find who would audition or actors willing to try a French accent. And obviously you had a very good one, and in the audition it only got better as we progressed. And when you said that you had an Italian background, I feel like that really helped with the European element to the film and the accent also. So I've just started off with a really superficially, those were important, but if we move to kind of the core of Mathilde as a character, she needed kind of this maturity to her, like she's been through so much, and you need to be able to tell that just by the way that she carries herself. She has a certain like gravitas and seriousness. You know, she's self-punishing in many ways, and I felt like that's something you can't necessarily switch on. That's to do with the presence that you had when you walked in, and I felt that presence even before you started acting was there. But also, I seen you in Bare Intimacy, another amazing short film directed by Jennifer Carlson, which you acted so incredibly in a non-verbal role. And to me, like, non-verbal acting is like a whole nother kettle of fish. And particularly in this film, I needed to make sure that Mathilde didn't feel like a puppet or a prop, especially because the house was so ornate. There were so many details in the background, and the set design was going to be so heavy that you couldn't just become another part of the design. And I felt that you could handle yourself in a way where you stood out for all the right reasons, and I definitely saw this in your audition. And I remember you also in the scene, so for audition, the scene we did where you're outside the small house with Tobias talking about your parents, and like you really brought the emotion, like I could see the tears in your eyes, and I was like, at that point I hadn't even necessarily seen it as that much of an emotional moment. In hindsight, obviously it is, and so I loved the fact that I could learn things from what you brought to the role and what you brought to your audition in a way that made my direction and the script and the story better. Actually, the same two scenes come to mind immediately, both in the house. The first is you and Vivian in front of the mirror, and it's again what's talking about the non-verbal acting, like you and her had a conversation. It's just like the way that you were looking at her and reacting, and it was exactly what I'd wanted. And it was one of those moments as a director you can just sit and go like, yes, this is great, this is amazing, I'm just gonna sit here and be happy. That was particularly incredible to witness on set, the magic of that moment. Like, I won't forget that. The second one was the dance scene, which I think actually we filmed straight after that, and that was also because it was one that I visualised so much in my head, and just to see that come to life and you personify everything about Mathilde and everything that we'd spoken about in how you moved and how you danced, and it was a beautiful scene, and you really handled that well, because I don't think it was easy. Yeah, I just thought you did that so well, and I sound like I'm crying. Yeah, it was really great to watch, and it was quite fun. I mean, maybe not for many other people at that hour, but yeah, no, it was a fun scene, and it just came to, I could see it coming together really well at that point. Honestly, it was better. It was than my original thought, 100% better, because like I didn't know how lucky I would be to get the locations that we did and the talent in yourself and the other cast members. So way better from the very start, but I think once I secured the locations and like Ziggy, we were actually going to build a set, but our production designer Ziggy Taylor actually found the most amazing Airbnb for the house. So once we had that, and once I had the cast, like yourself, Vivian and Noah, and of course Michael later on, then I started to think, like, you know, if this isn't good, then that's my fault, because you've got the talent and, you know, everything there. You've got all the building blocks to make something special here. If you don't, that's on you. So I'm glad that it turned out as well as it did, and it was definitely what I had hoped for after that kind of initial stage when it was all coming together. And the tone was something that I did worry about, because it's what I spoke about at the beginning, the music. It's light-hearted on face value, but it's got that real grief and loss and sorrow at the core, and I was worried that, you know, the tone would fall flat in some places, or it wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't have that dark humour, but then also that you wouldn't feel for the characters because it would come across as, you know, a bit maybe sarcastic. But that's down to you and Vivian for just performing it so incredibly well, and that balance between the light-hearted and the serious was spot on. So thank you. We've had the most amazing start to the festival campaign that I could ever imagine. It's about to premiere at CinefestOZ, which is like the perfect festival for our French-Australian film. I'm so excited to see what people think of it. We also have an American premiere coming up in November in Florida, Fort Lauderdale Festival, and hopefully many more. My dream actually is for it to play in France, because I just feel like that would be almost validation. I've had a couple of French people who've watched it who've really enjoyed it, and that's meant a lot. But for it to play in France would be something else. And finally, I mean, I think I could see this as a proof of concept, or I could see it working as a longer film. Definitely. So watch this space. Sasha, if anyone's out there who wants to produce a longer film, I'm happy to write it. Let me know. So, what we are doing today is Why Can't I Speak? I need to turn this off. I'm so hot. Is that hard? Le miroir. Okay, take a deep breath and just remember that people are going to watch this. Probably not many, but maybe a couple, you know? Okay. Hello.
Le miroir.
Le miroir. That is really hard to say. Tricky. Between myself and our lovely lead actress who played Mathilde. Okay, remind me not to do that because I'm wearing like pyjamas. Hi, I'm Leila. I'm the director of
Le miroir.
and